Hello, welcome back to our IGTV. My name is Andrew Kuhn, Focused Compounding, sitting next to Geoff Gannon. Jeff, how's it going?
It's going very well, Andrew. How's it going with you?
It's going great. We hope it's going great for everybody else. That's the intro to the podcast. It's so habitual. And today we're actually going to be talking about habits. Okay. The right habits that investors can form to become better investors. And we're probably going to do these short form videos more often here on Instagram. So be sure to follow along. And we're going to be doing some behind the scenes stuff on the stories and stuff. I'm having to teach Jeff the difference between Snapchat and Instagram and what a story is versus what a, I guess, picture post is, you know?
It doesn't matter. I don't use those things.
No,
I just record them.
No social media. So let's talk about the habits that all the listeners could sort of cultivate to become better investors, the viewers.
Yeah. So number one is to analyze a stock yourself. Read a 10K. I say read a 10K every day, but have a stock that you're going to analyze it yourself, and I print it out and mark it up. I know that most people are opposed to that. And that's the most important thing, to look at a new stock on your own each day instead of getting ideas from other people and just reacting off that.
So the most important thing is reading an annual report or a 10K every single day.
At least analyzing the stock. Yeah, if you want to do it some other way, that's fine. I mean, that's an important part of our process. It might not be for other kinds of investors.
Yeah. One thing that I thought was interesting, so you wrote a post on Gannon investing years ago. Okay. And you spoke about kind of doing this exact exercise, and how one thing that you would do is when you would find a piece of content that you wanted to read, you would print it off and then keep it aside, to really block off like an hour a day or 2 hours a day or at whatever point during the week. Where that's all that you do. You would set a Alexa a timer and tell you.
She's in the other room
for an hour. Hey, Alexa. And then you would just really spend that time to have like deep work and focus work, and that's it. So why did you, I guess, do that, and why should individuals do that as well?
Yeah, so
because you'd be surprised, right? A lot of people say, "Oh, I work. I got to go to the gym. I have kids. I got soccer practice. I don't have time to do all of this." But you'd actually be surprised if you just block off like an hour a day. Really how much material you could get through, and like a true hour of deep work.
Yes, that's exactly it. Yeah. That's why I did the timer, because I learned that from, I think I talked to you about that, talking to people who write books and things, and how did they do it. And they usually did it, all of them wrote their first book while they had a job that they were working at. They mostly had families by then. And yet they managed to write a whole book, and actually more than one book, because they had to get some books rejected. So how did they do it? They did it by figuring out that they have time to like write for 60 minutes or something, and figuring out that they have time that they thought that they didn't have.
Yeah.
And the way to do that is to know how long it takes you to get into like writing something, or get into breaking down a 10K or something, and then to realize actually that's not very long. And then you can do that as soon as you have that time. Because most people will say, okay, like people always have this idea, when I have a day off from work or whatever, I'm going to spend like that whole day doing investing stuff or whatever, right? That's always their idea, when I have that free time. Instead of like, oh, I can squeeze this in any time I have 60 minutes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, what other things can individuals do that is more of an efficient way to consume content? Audible. We talked about that. So if you drive to, if you have a long commute, listen to audiobooks. We obviously like that. What else?
I break down all the stuff, we talked about this a little bit, into whether this idea is useful to me or not, and try to eliminate the sorts of spending time on stuff that I think is general and not useful to me.
Or not knowable.
Yeah. So like you were talking about, like, do I read newspapers? Do I consume a lot of news and stuff, financial news? No. What I do is, if I get any of that stuff, I find like, is this article potentially useful to me? Yes, then I save it and read it later or something when I have time to focus on it. I try not to skim things, read a little bit of this, that sort of thing.
Yeah. One thing I thought was interesting is, I feel like a lot of people, if they're reading an annual report or 10K and they immediately know that this is not something that they're going to invest in, they probably just stop right there. Yeah. That's exactly what I do. You read it through. So what's the logic behind that, and why do you do that?
Because it's just, there's a risk that you would give up on it. I don't know how to explain it. When you go to the gym, do you ever just go, "Oh no, I'm done after 10 minutes"?
All the time.
Okay. Well, when, like I was telling you about books, you're like, do you ever just stop reading a book because it's bad? I'm like, you don't know how many terrible books I've read, but I do finish them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so once I decide that it's something that was worth my time in the first place, then yeah, I do always finish it. And I do finish 10Ks, even though yes, I may know very quickly that this is something I'm not going to invest in. It does teach me things that are useful about about other companies.
Yeah.
That are that way. The main thing is just because otherwise I feel like if you give up that quickly on something, the potential exists that you might do that on something that's just hard instead of something that you know you aren't interested in.
Yeah.
It becomes easy. I mean, we invested in NACO, I owned BWX Technologies, things like that. There's a potential in the early parts of what you're reading to say, no, this isn't what I want. Just because either it's too technical or because it's coal or some industry that you think isn't attractive or whatever, to give up reading about it. Now that's different than actually seeing something that you say, no, I'm just not going to do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do stick with it.
Yeah. Okay, so read more 10Ks, read more books. I would say read not just investing books, but like more like about history.
Okay.
And you'd be surprised how much like certain things you could pull, could just be, I guess, beneficial to the investing process. I mean, learn about China, and then you learn about like the culture and everything like that. And you may not invest in a Chinese company today, but in the future, maybe you're starting a company. You're like, oh wow, I know so much about China because I learned about China, a long time ago. So I've been actually trying to study more history. And kind of work that into my worldliness, because when Geoff and I were having dinner recently, and I got a very long lecture on the Taiwan Civil War,
the Chinese Civil War and the history of Taiwan stuff.
Yeah. So I was like, wow, I got to step up my game on knowing about a lot of facts about random stuff.
I don't know how knowing that is useful for investing. We don't invest in China, but yeah.
Okay, so 10Ks. Read more books, listen to audiobooks, have true deep work. So actually block off an hour, put the notifications away, set a timer, get an alarm clock. It's like $5.
Yeah. And you actually, it's like more efficient that way.
Yeah.
You'll actually spend less time. There are lots of people spend a lot of time somewhat looking at investing stuff. You don't have to do that. I mean, literally, you could literally spend an hour a day. That's the only time you spend investing. If you spend it in deep work on something that actually could be a stock you might buy, that's all you ever need to do. You do not need to spend more than 60 minutes a day on investing at all. If those 60 minutes are focused on a stock you might buy, actually, like, this is the only thing you're looking at this moment.
Yeah.
Literally an hour a day is all you'll ever need in your life.
So read the book Deep Work. There you go. Geoff's favorite book. He doesn't like the book, but he likes the concept from the book. Read the book Deep Work. Hit that follow button, check out all of our content on YouTube, and check out our podcast Focus Compounding on the Podbean and the podcast app. We will see you in the next video.